Just when you think the international break cannot get any worse, it just grabs you, turns you around, and gives you a firm smack across the face. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. I hope you've had a fantastic start to your weeks. I hope you're doing good and I hope you're doing well. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Good morning to Matt and Mark and Olawale and Tom, Glenn, Arasilki, Carl, Mr. Reed, Damien, Stevie, Barry T, Angela, Richard, Trader Mike, Oliver, Mark, we've got Gooner 76, we've got Natty, Tom, and Nathan, and Steve, and Knowledge, and more of you all as well. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And Jason's now been a member for 6 months. Fantastic stuff. Thank you for your continued support over here as well. Do please drop a like on the video. It does help us hugely as we try and reach our daily target of 1,000, 1K every day indeed. So if you could be ever so kind, it would be incredibly humbling of you just to click that like button. It really does help us out. Even if you're new to the channel, do also subscribe. It would mean a lot if you could. I'm looking forward, of course, to a few of your questions in part two. I also am going to do a bit of a call to arms again, like I did yesterday, regarding some of your thoughts on the ticketing situation. Would love to hear some more of your thoughts on that. Got a couple of emails, but I want to get some more feedback from more people. So I'll talk about that more at the start of part two. But we kick off with only a few stories today. We start with yesterday's game between France and Israel. William Saliba going viral yesterday because of his slip, which gave Israel a penalty in a pretty poor first half performance from France, despite the fact, of course, that France had taken a 1-0 lead early in the game through Eduardo Camavinga. Omri Gedelman obviously got the reply, but then 3 more goals from Christopher Nkunku, Matteo Guendouzi, and Bradley Barcola saw France win 4-1 in the end and claim victory. But it was that slip from it was that. Sorry, am I getting the wrong game? I am, aren't I? I'm talking about the wrong game. I'm talking about the Israel game. I should be talking about the Belgium game. There, sorry, the 2-1 win for France. It was a Randall Kolomoani penalty that gave them a lead, and then Lois Openda got the equaliser. But yes, this slip from Saliba taking away this opportunity that it's just now been grabbed and stolen by Liverpool fans mainly. You've probably seen this. You've seen this kind of rolling through social media feeds of Liverpool fans for some reason being very upset very easily by Saliba at the moment. It's very much kind of a desperate feeling to generate this kind of rivalry between the two players. I mean, if you actually watch the clip of him taking out Openda, he very blatantly just slips over, and it's just he loses his foot, and it's very, very unlucky, very unfortunate indeed. It don't have to do with the pitch or whatnot, but a very unfortunate moment for William Saliba that obviously gave away that Leandro Trossard starting on the other side for Belgium. But yes, William Saliba didn't come away from that. I mean, Tchouameni got sent off in this game in the 76th minute, but it wasn't said to be the best of performances by Les Bleus. But so they got the points anyway. They still managed to get the win, and good teams do that when they're playing badly. But yeah, William Saliba taking out Openda there. Apologies for the slight error in in the opponent. It's one of those mornings, clearly. Anyway, Arsenal reportedly are hopeful that Saka will be fit for the Bournemouth game, which is obviously really good news based upon what we've seen and heard so far. We've seen the Athletic, we've seen the Evening Standard all coming out to claim that Arsenal are hopeful that the Arsenal winger will indeed be fit for the game against Bournemouth. A big, big boost considering this international break has been pretty much nothing but bad news. And we've had to suffer through consistent and persistent updates of a pessimistic and negative nature. Well, it's nice for once to get a little bit of positive news that Saka's hamstring problem against Greece that was suffered that saw him come off and unable to play in the game against Finland is not going to stop him from playing. Hopefully, the optimism is there against Bournemouth. There is part of me, though, and I don't know if you feel the same, and you'll have to let me know. Like hamstring injuries, muscular injuries, you have to be careful with these things. And I want to put the question to you. I might even put it into the chat box, and you'll have to give me your answers. Do you lean more towards being cautious and instead resting Bukayo Saka? That's kind of what I want to know. Would you, even if past fit, that's the question, rest Saka versus Bournemouth? That's my question for you that I would like you to answer in the poll that I'm just putting up into the chat box now. Because even if he is deemed fit and clear, these muscular problems, I for some reason, not even for some reason, it should be a very obvious reason. You need to be very careful with them. We saw him testing out his hamstring on the pitch against Greece, and there were suggestions from Likazi that he might have even pushed to try and play against Finland, despite the fact he's got this issue. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Of course, we know that Raheem Sterling, we know Leandro Trossard, Gabriel Jesus are all, of course, options for Arsenal. But yes, it's a question mark that I have and a question that I want to put to you. So let me know what you think in the poll in the chat box if you're live. And if you're listening on catch up, jump over into the comment section and tell me what your thoughts are. However, the bad news coming out yesterday is that according to Team Talk, they have claimed that sources have told them that Takahiro Tomiyasu has supposedly suffered yet another issue with his knee. Now, of course, he made his return from injury in those final moments of the game against Southampton. And the suggestions are that Tomiyasu will now face another spell on the sidelines. And Team Talk say that he suffered this problem because of the cameo against Southampton, that a recurrence of the knee problem re-emerged during that game. And if this is the case, obviously it's very frustrating. And from the perspective of Tomiyasu, you want to be supportive and you want to be understanding. But there is obviously frustration as well. This is a player, of course, that we've committed a contract to, a player that, is in the squad, a player that we consider to be a valuable part of the team when fit. But this persistent injury scenario that Tomiyasu continues to deal with, I think we have to come to an agreement that a decision probably has to be made with Tomiyasu in the summer of 2025. And even though his contract runs through until 2026 at the earliest, it's incredibly questionable that his time with Arsenal. This is all hypothetical based upon this report that what may even be proven to be incorrect. We don't know at the moment. We haven't got clarity on this situation at all. But if indeed this does turn out to be true, then obviously I personally haven't heard anything on this. That's not to say it's not true, of course. But Team Talk reporting this story through their outlet. The journalist behind the piece is James Holland, who reports this story. A very interesting development potentially with this one, and we'll be keen to see if there is any updates on this from Arteta when he faces the media at the end of this week. Now, of course, you can get right now. You don't need to wait until the end of the week to get yourself a great deal off a fantastic VPN service, because by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan with NordVPN. You get 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that 2 year deal as well. And if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, you get a 30-day money back guarantee. But why would you be when Nord can bring you the greatest security a VPN out there can, when you're perhaps using those public Wi-Fi services? You want to keep your data safe. Maybe you're going abroad and you want to jump back to the UK digitally to watch things you wouldn't otherwise be available to do so, or any other of the territories, of course, supported by Nord. All the details are on their website. So that is, of course, very important to be aware of. And not only that, but we know that the prize, courtesy of Football Prizes to win, a signed Mikel Arteta shirt has indeed sold out. And that means that where is hope always, that a brand new prize, will be available for you to get involved with. And I can tell you that is indeed the case. In fact, I'm going to get it up on screen for you in just a second, because you can potentially win now a signed and framed. Classic. This is a bit of a, I'm going to go as far as saying it's a bit of a cult hero shirt. This could, I mean, for me, I'm really excited about this prize because it features one of the players, of course, that I have always had an affinity towards, and his name is Thomas Rosicky. You can win a dual Jack Wilshere and Thomas Rosicky signed and framed Arsenal pairing shirt. A brilliant prize, a very niche prize, and I love that this is the new one at the moment. Instant win prizes include a signed Pires shirt and a signed Dennis Bergkamp shirt, so some proper high-end instant win prizes available for you to potentially get your hands on as well. I can tell you that more than half the tickets have indeed already sold. Shows you the popularity of potentially winning this pretty left-wing prize. Left field prize, I should say. This left field prize. 142 tickets remain. Best of luck to all of you that get involved. UK only, as always. Let's go to part 2 and your questions, though, right after this. Right, this is part 2 of the show where we jump into the chat box and tackle some of your questions and more. So if you've indeed got any questions that you'd like to get an answer to, now is the time to have them answered. Of course, I do want to remind you to press that like button. Do help us on our way to 1K every single day on the channel. And also, of course, I wanted to give you a bit of a nudge. You can access, of course, my socials. You can see on the screen. They're at Tom Cantor Media, at the Gooner Talk TV. You can also go over to any of my articles on the football.london page. There is an email attached at the top of those pages where you click the little mail button. It'll take you to the email. I want to hear from you today. Today is the last day that I can get any feedback from any of you regarding the ticketing situation, your experiences with the Arsenal ticketing situation, what your frustrations are, what your benefits are. Perhaps you're happy with it, and I want to hear both sides of the story. I want to hear your experiences with it, how you think it can be improved, what grinds your gears, what really whets your appetite in some ways about the Arsenal ticketing system. That I want to hear it all. So if you've got thoughts, you can, if you're on our Discord server, you can send me a message over there, of course, as well. But I want to get your feedback because we're going to be writing a piece. If you're frustrated about things, you're like, how can I get my thoughts heard by the club? Well, this is a piece that's going to be going out in detail tomorrow on the ticketing situation. I want to hear from you. You know, it's a chance, of course, to get your thoughts heard on this. No matter, you don't have to be local, of course. You could be abroad. It could be about your experiences with trying to get tickets from abroad as a supporter coming from outside of the UK. I want to hear plenty of your feelings on this. Let's go to that Tomiyasu conversation. Cooler Dude says Tommy needs to go to a less intense club training-wise. Perhaps presenting there that the training is the issue. Logan says taking Bournemouth for granted is dangerous and could easily end up dropping points. Arteta has never shown much interest in resting Saka. Mark says, okay, guys, suppose we sell Tomiyasu this summer. I hope you don't be beating Edu up if we don't get him for what we paid for, given that we're selling him with an injury problem. GSP says, I'd put Saka on the bench on Saturday's game if possible and would only bring him on if absolutely necessary. Victor says, if Tomiyasu's injury is not proven, why are we talking about it? Just going to check. Hold on. 2 seconds. Yes, this is the Arsenal news show. Just checked. Some news broke about an Arsenal player, so we talked about it, Victor. As simple as that, really. Raf says, this is why I didn't get the outrage with us buying Calafiori, Zinchenko, and Tomiyasu. They're constantly injured and have those concerns, and Timber just came back from a year out as well. And I guess it's a good point that Arsenal were aware of the problem suffered by their players. That's why we still went out and signed another defender, and that is proving, of course, to have been a good decision that we needed to make. Paul says, give Saka a rest against Bournemouth. Jason says, missed out on the Shakhtar ballot, went to the ticket exchange. The only tickets available were costing £247. I assume those are the ones in the club level, Jason. I do know that at the time, the ballot had the exchange had a lot of seats. So maybe you were a bit late to the party, maybe, Jason, because I got sent images of the ticket exchange on the day that the ballot, of course, was, people missed out on the ballot and could access the ticket exchange. There were loads of seats all around the stadium, not just in the club level. So, but I have heard a few stories of some people saying that the prices of tickets have been allegedly when you go into the ticket exchange that they're higher than usual, but I've not had that confirmed or had any evidence to suggest that's true at the moment. But again, these are things where I want to get your feedback on. James says, Tom, there is a rumor that if you hit 100,000 subs, you'll do a 1 hour Havertz Waka Waka sing along. Can you confirm this? I'm not going to confirm that at all, James. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to say what would happen if we ever reached the fabled land in the most genuine of ways. Have managed to reach that 100,000 subscriber target. That would be, I wouldn't give something like that away so soon. Ant says, Tom, is there any team in the Premier League as unlucky as us with major injuries? Not only with our current squad, but I go back to players like Abu Diaby, Eduardo, Aaron Ramsey, Jack Wilshere. And you raise a fair question. I'd be very curious to know whether or not other teams have had serious injuries to key players, young players, up-and-coming players, as regularly as Arsenal have. I'm really confused as to know whether or not any other club could match that. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there certainly are. I'm sure there are nations clubs out there that could match it. So yeah, that's definitely something to look at. Mick says, LMAO, I love Petty Tom. I love being Petty Tom. Petty Tom is the best kind of Tom. Sanuga says, anyone notice Tomiyasu is what? Bow legs? I don't even know what that means. I'm going to Google that. I don't know what that means. It is what is it? What is it? It is when the legs are curved outward at the knees while someone's feet and ankles touch. Also, it's like you've got like a oval shape from kind of your groin area to your feet if you were to stand with your feet together. I've never noticed that. I don't know if there's any pictures of Tomiyasu standing up straight that can give us any evidence. I don't know where you've got that from. That's quite an in-depth claim. I can't say I've ever. I need to find a picture of Tomiyasu like standing up straight now. There's a picture of him running here, and he doesn't look like it there. And his legs are pretty close together. I don't see that anywhere. I don't even know if that would be a cause of knee injuries or increases the chance of knee injuries. My medical knowledge in this field is not exactly like the most in-depth, but I'd love to know where you get your evidence from for this claim and if that is indeed true. Rich says, I don't want to lose Tomiyasu. How many defensively sound two-footed fullbacks who can play across the back four are on the market right now? We should keep him even if his injuries persist. It's all well and good, saying we should keep Tomiyasu because he's really versatile and he gives us lots of quality. But if he's never available, then why and how? Why would we keep it, and how on earth would we justify it? That's, I guess, the problem that there is. Carl says, the ballot, I passed my ticket on to a friend when I wasn't able to make the game. He himself couldn't make it, but wasn't allowed to transfer it back. The seat sadly went empty. Carl, that sounds like some feedback, mate. Send it an email. Send it in a message to one of my platforms. I would really appreciate to hear from you. Ian says, just had a quick look at the ticket exchange, and there are 14 tickets available, all in club level. The cheapest right now is 133. Well, there you go. Ian doing the research, so you don't have to. eBay says, good morning, guys. Let's stop nagging on about every injury in the squad. I understand there isn't a proper Arsenal content due to the international break, but today's conversation is petty. What do you want us to do, eBay? It's the news. It's what's come out. It's what's been reported. We're not just talking about ITKs. We're talking about a website that produces news stories, that has delivered a piece of information that may or may not, of course, get further backing and further evidence. We'll have to, and if it doesn't, and if it gets proven to be, untrue, of course, they will, get the relevant scrutiny off the back of that. But I don't really know what you want us to do. If you don't want to be exposed to Arsenal news, maybe don't click the video that says Arsenal News Show. That's probably the best advice I can give you. Stop giving me news, Arsenal News Show, please. I don't want to see it. No, don't show me the news. I don't want to see the news. Talk about something else other than the news. Rob says, how can we answer the poll and anything to do with the players' physicalities when we don't have access to player data? We're just guessing as to the players' levels. That's why I asked you the question with context, Rob. The question says, if Saka is past fit, we know he suffered with a muscular hamstring injury. He's been past fit. But would you, in the knowledge that we know that hamstrings can be delicate substances and they can re-injure at times, that's the context that you got with the question. I'm curious to know your thoughts, and of course with that poll. So let's see. So would you rest Saka even if he was past fit for the Bournemouth game, based upon the fact he suffered that hamstring problem that kept him out of the game against Finland? 68% of you at the moment of 300 plus votes say yes. 32% of you at the moment say no. Maximir says, Tom, my strategy for Saka is simple. Rest for Bournemouth, bring on in the second half against Shakhtar and play against Liverpool. That way he gets the required 2-week rest plus some minutes before the Liverpool match. Definitely something that could be done. Mix says, do you play a lot of Football Manager? I'm addicted and bring my laptop literally to every time I'm in the studio just so I can play it during downtime. I'm not a Football Manager player. No, I'm not. I've never got into it. I know that people absolutely can get obsessed with it, but I really don't. I really can't do it. I used to like when I was younger, before I was cognitively able to play Football Manager on FIFA. Career mode would just sim every single game. Would basically treat it like a BTEC version of Football Manager, where you just sim every single game and just do the transfers and stuff and just see how my team would get on. But that's as far as my interest ever peaked in that regard. I don't need to be told how bad of a manager I would be. I don't need to know that. I just don't. If I was a manager, I'd be so much more of a man manager, so much more of a mental health guru for my team. I'd be, Andrew Postecoglou talks a lot about that, and that in itself is evidence that I probably wouldn't be a great manager. Guy says, what's your worst starting 11 from the Emirates era of players? That's a hell of a question. It's really mean. It's really mean, Guy. Our worst 11. Let us know in the comments. I'm not going to go through a worst. I feel too bad, Guy. That's people's. Imagine being put in a worst 11. It could be. It depends on your context. It could be players you don't rate. It could be players that you just don't like. Put Samir Nasri in a worst Emirates era 11 just because I don't like the guy. So that certainly would be it. Let's scroll up a little bit more. TGR says, what video should I click then, Tom, if not for the news? Oh, dear. What have I started? Oh, no. What have I started? I reckon there's probably more of these types of comments now, isn't there? Damien says, you should be ashamed of yourself, Tom. We don't come here for news. I'm outraged. eBay says, Tom, I'm not knocking the content. I love the channel nonetheless. I appreciate it, eBay. It's just, I find it always very amusing. It was like that comment earlier on. Like, why are we talking about it if we don't know? Because it's news. It's a news story. And this is the news show. So that's what it is. TGR says that I'd be the hype. I absolutely would just be a hype manager. I'd be hyping up players. All I'd do is sign players from Red Bull Salzburg. And I'd steal Szoboszlai away. I'd just sign all the players that I thought that we should have signed just to prove a point. Asensio would rock up at the Emirates, Gyökeres, Szoboszlai, who else? Some of the classic TGT cult heroes back in the day. If you've been watching the show for years, trying to think of some other players that we used to talk about like 6-7 years ago, we're like, oh yeah, that's absolutely Jonathan Soriano. You're getting his 20-plus goal seasons, never being talked about enough. I'm trying to think of some of the TGT cult hero names that we've done. Julian Draxler, yeah, his name came up a lot, didn't it, back in the day? Goodness gracious. Milinkovic Savic, yes. Some of these names are the brilliant times that we've had talking about potential transfer targets going, is any European club ever going to take a risk on Milinkovic Savic? Emi Buendia, oh, goodness gracious me. Don't go and watch the Emi Buendia video. That was a dark time. That was a dark period of the channel's existence when Arsenal didn't sign Emi Buendia. That was one of the most watched videos we've ever had. Is where I think it got something like 40. I don't know how. Let's have a look. How many views did that video get? The Gooner Talk. Emi Buendia. Goodness gracious me. No. Buendia to sign. Oh, dearie me. That video got 23,000 views. Back then that was one of our most viewed videos. It's not bad now, but back then that was like, I think we were only on like, oh, goodness me, like 20,000 subs. So I think we were getting more views than we had subs on that video at that time, and it was an absolutely hilarious video where I basically just screamed at the camera. I'm actually looking at the chat. There's a live chat replay. I don't know if I can share this with you. Let's just see if I can do that. The adverts are playing in the background. I hope it's not coming through the screen for you. That'd be really frustrating. I've got the Twitter screen up. I've got the green screen. Right, let me share my screen with you. Stop screen, present screen, share screen, tab. This is the one. Let me just check the comments before I share the screen. There's nothing rude, is there? So I reckon some of the comments are hilarious. Right, share the screen. This was the video. Aston Villa beat Arsenal to Emi Buendia signing. Some of these comments, I reckon, in the chat box are going to be absolutely hilarious. I reckon they're going to be really funny. It's a disgrace, says George G. Ian says, we need a creative player who will hit the ground running, not one who will take the season to settle, or Arteta will be out by October. Wow, we're talking about Arteta being out of the club at this point. Ashu says, shame on everyone who thought we are going to get better. Johnny says, watch the Cronkies sell Saka to City and Aubameyang to Chelsea. Oh my goodness, he was ahead of the curb. Johnny Z knew what was going to happen. We actually managed, well, we didn't sell him straight to Chelsea, of course, but Aubameyang ended up at Chelsea. How weird is that? Johnny Z, someone needs to find this guy. Someone needs to find Johnny Z, because he's somehow broken these. He's cracked the code. This is incredible. Matt G, with a long-term subscriber in the chat. Bet tomorrow Liverpool will announce Basuma just to top off the weekend. Oh, how things have changed, eh? How things have changed in this lead. Herb F.U. Arteta. This is what it was like 3 years ago. This is what people were talking about 3 years ago. Just F.U. Arteta in the chat. Not even the actual words. For those listening on audio platforms, I'm not censoring this. It's just 2 letters. That was it. Shalito says, North London is dead. Isoa said, Arsenal is a dumpster fire. This is the content we used to do. This is what that used to be like. It's sometimes, I think, quite good to just go back and remember how bad things were and think of where we are now and think how far we have come since those times. Because since those times were dark days. Those times were really, really dark days. And it shows you how far we have gone since then. Matt G says, I can't believe I was gutted about us not getting Basuma back then. It's funny how things change. It really is. Runs of Cow says, Johnny Z lives in the dark between space and time. He just knows. Johnny Z just knew Aubameyang was going to end up at Chelsea. Incredible. It's funny. We should do this more often. Look back at the comments of our videos. I mean, some of them I bet are really bad. Probably not very acceptable in 2024 these days. Just reading through some more of the comments in the not in the live chat, just the comment section. Javi Jones says this is completely embarrassing. Paul Harris says Villa are on the up, very well run club at the moment. You can't say that didn't turn out to be true. Sploogy UK says Smith Rowe signing for Villa this week. Well, that didn't happen as well. Tejas says his priority was apparently Arsenal, but we didn't offer him enough money to tempt Norwich to do the business. Callum 1971 says, I need therapy from supporting Arsenal. I'm actually so peed off. These are great. Carlin Cuz says, so called, we're a top 6 Super League club as well. Tally says, if we had gone with the £35 million from the beginning, oh, who knows? If only we'd bid 35 million for Emi Buendia. Amazingly so, we ended up paying less than £35 million for Martin Odegaard. Like that's it. This is the international break content we've all been wanting and all been needing. P Trim, remember that name. If this is true, it's embarrassing. Were we even actually in for him? Mo742 says this club is a joke and that fans accept this is stupid. I do blame the mediocrity of the Cronkies, but we are to blame for accepting this and not protesting in huge numbers to get our voices heard. Take to the streets, people. Get your Emi Buendia masks out. Get your placards out. You spend, we spend, we all spend. Placards out. Sorry, Mo. Just those. These. Just I feel that these were the absolutely the good old days. Jerome John says, but you don't know, Tom, whether we actually wanted him. Let's be realistic. If we and Aston Villa bid the same amount of money, even though we aren't good right now, he uses different words. Why on earth would he choose to go to the Villa? Journalists only know what the clubs are allowing them to know. Let's not have a meltdown just yet. So even back then, we had people trying to calm us down. We had people trying to bring perspective. And they knew, these people that are trying to bring perspective, trying to bring the calm, they knew. They knew what was going on. Nanny6999 says it was a myth. And when people used to say, it was a myth when people used to say that we were a well-run club. Vajra just says, Cronky out. I love this. Is great. This is wonderful content. Just reading all the old comments from back in the day. Oh, goodness gracious me. What a time it used to be. How things have changed since then, eh? How things have changed. Jerry says the poll has got more votes than the video has got. What? So far, the video has got how many likes? This is an incredible piece of analytics, if this is the case. The video has 256 likes, and 432 of you have voted. How does that work? How can we only have 256 likes on the video, and 400 of you... Some people are outing themselves here. So you can click the vote button, but you can't click the like button. Noted. It's all up here. I won't forget this treachery. I won't forget this betrayal. I will remember this forever. Yes, this is the best TGT episode ever. It's Anne says I'm forgetting Hussam Hour. So this is just becoming Reminiscence Hour. Or we can coin it Renaissance Hour if you like, but I think Reminiscence Hour is probably the better one. Mark says, I still yearn for a Premier League title, but we're so much closer than we were 3 years ago. I look forward to match days, even against the likes of City, Liverpool, and Spurs. There isn't a match we go into today that we don't think we can win. We go into every single game today as Arsenal fans believing we can win. That's where we've taken ourselves. That's what Arteta has done. That's what Edu has done. That's what the Cronkies have done. And this is from someone that used to do videos absolutely battering the Cronkies. I used to be, we used to have conversations about why they should leave, why they're not spending, why they're not doing anything. Little did I wasn't very educated back then, and I've done a lot more educating myself since then, and I've learned plenty more about that. But how things have changed, how naive we were. And, we're big enough people to admit that, back then we were way too reactive. We were way too reactive. And we're not so proud that we can't change our minds, open our minds. What's the point of having one if you never change it? As the saying goes. And we can appreciate that we were wrong about Arteta and the Cronkies and Edu back then. That without a doubt, they've proven to be the right people to take this team forwards, to lead us to where we are now. And I think reading those comments, reading how we were feeling at a time when we didn't sign Emi Buendia. And instead, later that summer, they would go and sign, of course, Martin Odegaard. Since moving to Aston Villa, Emi Buendia has 10 goals in 83 games for Aston Villa. Whereas if you have a look at what Martin Odegaard has done, he has 35 goals and probably a hell of a lot of assists as well in 156 games for Arsenal. So 1.5 times better, I think, just doing some quick maths in my head there in terms of goals. I'm not sure what the assist record is. But it's just night and days now. And I think, the double the number of games he's played shows you, of course, also that the injury issues that Emi Buendia has had that we've not had to deal with in the same way. Of course, I know Odegaard's out at the moment. But yeah. Sophie's in the chat says, my early Arteta shows are clown emoji. They're not, Sophie. And the reason why they're not is because if you go back and watch those shows, as I could go back and watch some of my shows back then, and you go back and watch them and you watch the shows we do now and you look at the difference of the points of view, they're not. What would be absolutely hilarious is if you did shows back then that battered or criticized the club, and if you still did it now. That's what would make you look the clown. That was because if in that period of time from 3 years ago when we were crying and laughing about, well, not laughing, but, laughing in, what's the word, in Schadenfreude, if you like. If we were laughing at that back then and we were still kind of doing the same now, you would look really silly. Because obviously, if you compare what Arsenal were like 3-4 years ago compared to what they are now, it's night and day. So if you have the same opinion then as now as you did then, that's what would make you the clown emoji, Sophie. When I know that obviously both myself and and yourself certainly have changed our minds and have been changed and have seen our views and perspective on the club change over the last 3 to 4 years. And that's what's key. Sofa has been talking about not being an early adopter a lot lately and how wrong I was. And that's fine. I hate it when people absolutely gun for others when they change their opinion. One of the biggest phrases back then, I remember, used to be the term flip-flop. Do you remember that term? Judges is a massive flip-flop. He'd get it more than anyone else. But like that term was so vilified back then. It basically, if you weren't a kind of a viewer of content 3-4 years ago, maybe you're one of our younger listeners, or maybe you've just come into the YouTube space more recently and found the channel more recently. 3-4 years ago, if you dare change your opinion, if you would say one thing and then, you know, maybe a week, a month, or even a year later, your mind changed, you'd be like, oh, Tom, that flip-flop flipping about of all his opinions, why can't he be consistent? And it's like, now it's entirely different. If you have the same opinion of Arteta, which was critical as you did now as compared to back then, that is something worthy of criticism. That is something worth pointing at as looking hilariously silly, hilariously attention-seeking, because that's all it could be now. Because how on earth could you look at what's happened over the last 4 years? The progression, the competitivity, the quality, the recruitment, the development, the coaching, the connection, the unity, the principles, the atmosphere, everything to do with Arsenal from then to now has transformed. And Arsenal have never been as competitive as they are now for more than, for more than, well over more than a decade. Nearly closing in on 2 decades, of course. The end of last season was the 2-year anniversary since the invincible season, and next year will be the start of the season that marks the anniversary of that Champions League campaign when we got to the final. So it's the first time we've been as competitive we are since those times, and it's a fun time to be an Arsenal fan. You go into every game thinking you can win. You go into every season now looking at the title, looking at the trophies, looking at expectations that are just night and day compared to back then. And that's because of the work that's been done. Ainsley says, our late KC was Arteta's lawyer when he spoke back then. That's a lovely memory of that. I remember when I did a show with Kev on the channel, just me and him, just on the channel doing the whole talk, and he was talking about social media, and it's taken me a long time to take Kev's advice about social media and to kind of just move on from it and to just make it such a smaller part of my existence. Social media used to own me so much, and Kev used to tell me back, like, you can't let it own you. Like, it's people behind faceless accounts that just leave comments and will chase you around, and you might hop up on other channels. Like if I go onto Dan's channel, I go onto anyone else's channel, where obviously there's you don't have the same kind of community as you have here, in the same kind of support, because obviously you guys listen to this because I hope that you want to listen to me, but if I go elsewhere, you don't have that. So people aren't always going to be as nice as 99% of you guys are. So, and that used to just rip away, but now it's so secondary, and you kind of you get a greater perspective on. You start thinking about what those people must be like and what those people's lives must be, and you must think, you end up just feeling a bit sorry for them, the people that would just come for you on social media or chase you around different channels and leave different comments. You end up just feeling a bit sorry for them, and then you end up not feeling anything. And that's where I'm at right now, is that I went from being frustrated to feeling sorry to feeling nothing, because now I can just focus on the positives and ignore that rubbish, which is a great, really, really great place to be in. He sure was, Soph. He sure was Arteta's lawyer, and he held that with pride. But he's been proven very much right. I hope we win the league, and I think my first thought, if and when that happens, will be that I wish that he could have seen it. And he'll be the first person I think about, I think, if and when that league title is lifted by Arsenal. I think that's a really nice place to end the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and your support, as always. And I hope you've enjoyed this reminiscence that we've gone through today, and some of the look backs of what it used to be on the channel, and the feeling and the vibe used to be 3+ years ago. It was a very, very different place to where it is now, but it's we're a whole lot happier and we're a whole lot more in a better place than we were then. And I'm looking forward, of course, to this weekend's game. And I'll be bringing you a show tomorrow morning. As I said, I will make this one more comment before I go, which is if you've got any comments, thoughts, feedback on the ticketing situation at Arsenal, I want to hear from you. Please, it's the last day that you're going to be able to do so. So send your emails in. You can find that on the About page. Send your DMs in on social media. If it's Twitter at the Gooner Talk TV, at Tom Canton Media. If it's on Threads, at Tom Canton 94. If it's on Instagram, at the Gooner Talk, you can find me at any of those. Or if you go to any of my articles on football.london, there is a little email icon that you can also use underneath my name at the top of the byline. So do go to any of those outlets and give me your feedback on the current feeling around Arsenal's ticketing situation. I want your feedback. This is a way in which you can get your voice heard. Important people will see this content, so don't miss out on that opportunity to be able to send in your feedback. I'll be very grateful for it. Have an amazing day. Stay safe. Stay well, stay happy, stay respectful, stay appreciative of things. And as always, up the Arsenal.